What if Earth had rings, like Saturn? Imagine stepping outside at sunset, and instead of an empty horizon, you see a shining arc of light wrapping around the planet. Beautiful, almost unreal. But if Earth truly had rings, how would it change our sky, our climate, and life as we know it?
When we think about planetary rings, one planet immediately comes to mind. Saturn. Those bright, elegant bands circling the planet in perfect symmetry. And here's something interesting. Rings are not solid. They are made of billions of pieces of ice, rock, and dust. Some as small as grains of sand, some as large as mountains, all orbiting together in perfect balance. Imagine standing on one of those fragments, looking out across space. You wouldn't see a perfect ring. You would see countless pieces drifting beside you, all bound together by gravity. But Saturn isn't special. Jupiter has rings. Uranus has rings. Neptune has rings. Rings are not decorations. They are evidence. Evidence of collisions, gravity at work, of a planet's history written in orbit. Which raises a simple question. If so many planets can have rings, why doesn't Earth? So, could Earth ever have rings? The answer is yes, and it may have already happened. Around 4.5 billion years ago, the young Earth was struck by a Mars-sized object. The impact was violent. So violent that enormous amounts of debris were blasted into orbit. Rock, molten material, fragments of an entire world. For a time, Earth was surrounded by a cloud of orbiting debris. And before that debris gathered together, before it slowly formed the Moon, Earth may have briefly had something very close to a ring system.
Not permanent, not stable, but real.
And here's where it becomes even more interesting. There is something called the Roche limit. It is the distance at which a celestial body gets too close to a planet, and gravity begins to tear it apart, not explode, not shatter, tear. If an asteroid or even a small moon crossed Earth's Roche limit, it would not survive intact. It would be pulled apart into thousands, millions of fragments, and those fragments could begin to orbit, forming a ring. If Earth had rings today, they would most likely orbit along the equator. That means their appearance would change depending on where you are on the planet. Near the equator, you wouldn't see a circle overhead. You would see a vast horizontal band stretching from east to west. A structure so large, it would divide the sky in two. During the day, the rings might appear pale, almost like a faint white cloud that never moves. But as the sun lowers, light would strike the particles at an angle, and suddenly the sky would transform. The rings would glow in layered tones of gold and copper, not flashing, not dramatic, just present. At night, they would not disappear. They would reflect sunlight from the far side of Earth. A dim silver arc cutting through the darkness, bright enough to reduce the sharpness of the stars. Navigation would look different. Even the feeling of open sky would be different, because the sky would no longer feel empty. It would feel occupied. But beauty comes with consequences. If Earth had rings, they wouldn't simply hang in the sky as decoration. They would interact with the planet in subtle but measurable ways. If the rings were dense enough, they would block a portion of sunlight, not everywhere, not constantly, but enough to matter. Regions near the equator could receive slightly less solar energy over time, and small differences in climate rarely stay small. A slight reduction in sunlight would gradually cool surface temperatures. That cooling would alter evaporation across oceans and land. And when evaporation shifts, rainfall follows. Rainfall determines agriculture. Agriculture determines stability. Entire regions that were once fertile could become fragile. Growing seasons might shorten. Crop yields could decline, slowly at first, but persistently. Not enough to cause immediate collapse, but enough to create pressure. Storm systems could intensify as temperature differences between regions increase. Monsoon cycles could weaken or strengthen unpredictably. Glaciers in some areas might advance. In others, drought could deepen. Migration patterns, both human and animal, would begin to respond. The planet would not collapse overnight, but it would not remain balanced either, because climate is not a single event. It is a system, and when you alter one part of a system, the effects travel.
Even with all of this, the Earth would continue to turn, and above it, the rings would remain.
So what would that world actually look like?
My name is Adam, and now let's create a visual of it together. First, bring in Earth, resize it a bit. And yes, we're cutting it out properly with the pen tool. Why? Because this is the main character. We respect the main character, clean cut, no shortcuts. Now, space, dark background. Because if space wasn't dark, we'd have bigger problems. Add some stars, not a million of them. We're not decorating a Christmas tree, just enough to feel real. Now let's bring in some planets, one by one. Are their positions scientifically accurate? Absolutely not. Do I care? Not even slightly. This is about the idea, not orbital mechanics. Now comes the fun part. We're borrowing Saturn's ring. Sorry Saturn, we're upgrading Earth today. Place it around Earth, adjust the angle, make it feel massive. Now lighting. This is where things either look real or look like a school project. The sun is on the left, so everything has to obey that. Warm highlights on one side, cool fall off on the other. For Jupiter, blue glow on one edge, orange sunlight on the other. Same logic for every planet, consistency is everything. Now, Earth and the ring, they're looking a little flat, we can't have that. Add shadows, add highlights, add depth, and suddenly it feels somewhat better, I think. Then I brought in a ridiculous amount of meteors. Way too many. It looked like the solar system exploded, so we removed most of them. Less is more. Now we refine. Darken areas where light doesn't reach. Boost highlights where it does. Follow the light source. Always follow the light. Then I looked at the ring again and thought, that's way too thick. Earth doesn't need a hula hoop, so we slim it down. Better. But now it looks too clean. Rings aren't polished metal, they're debris. So we rough it up. Add texture. Break it slightly, make it feel ancient. And finally, camera raw filter. A little contrast, a little tone balancing, and just like that, Earth has rings. Not scientifically accurate, not perfectly realistic, but believable enough to make you wonder, what if?